board out of the way. There he is.
It might look better for your audience with the board up.
Are you all right? Are you hanging in there? Because, Nicole Hardman got a little banged up there, growing injury. Are you all right there? Are you hanging in there?
I think I'm about as well as he is. Look, there are two things. There are two pet peeves I have. And I've been guilty of it, as every reporter in the world has, but two pet peeves that drive me crazy. One is when people report contract details, and it's like, this guy got 5 years and $100 million, and it's really like 2 years and like $30 million. That's number one. Number two is when at this time of year, people are like, oh, you got carted off. You got cart. And then you read the beat writers who are there, and they're like, yeah, you hopped on a golf cart. And that was the situation today in Kansas City, or actually, to be more accurate, St. Joe's. Chris Jones was carted off, too. Nobody's talked about that. He had a sore back. He left early. Nicole Hardman had, as you point out, they think a minor groin injury. But if you read it on Twitter, it sounds like these guys are getting carted off a battlefield. So
right.
it drives me nuts when you see these things come across, and you're like, oh, wait, what happened? Then you go and check out, you're like, oh, hey, probably fine, which is good, but it's also annoying.
Some people may not realize that the Chiefs have Josh Gordon on that roster. And obviously, Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, the Sky Moore kid, all those people are ahead of him, I'm sure. But
Yes.
but Josh Gordon is trying to find, footing again in the NFL. He's actually there. And by the way, I think he's with the perfect coach. If he's ever going, I mean, it's kind of been too long now from where he was at to where he is now, which, by the way, kind of leads me to this question. If Watson has to sit out another year, I got to tell you something. You better start worrying if he ever is going to be the player he was. Because when you're away from football that long, that's not an easy thing to do. Now, back in the day, Roger Staubach had to do it. You know what I mean? So there, it's Muhammad Ali he had to leave boxing and then come back. So it's been done before, but man, it becomes one hell of a mission for you. And look at Josh Gordon. He's never been able to recapture what he was back in the day. And you wonder, okay, can if Deshaun Watson misses another year, dude, that's 2 years away from football. That's a long time to not be playing at a high level.
It is. And you mentioned Josh Gordon. I think unless somebody gets hurt for the Chiefs, he's going to get cut. He's not making that team. But that's your point. It's been, he had great talent, but years and years and years of not playing or barely playing, it takes its toll. Time takes its toll. And you're right. Guys like Roger Staubach, who didn't play for years, Navy service, stuff like that, and then went and played. I think the one difference is, with all due respect to players of that era, guys back then basically rolled out of bed in August, and it was like, all right, 2 weeks, get ready, knock off that 10 pounds you gained while you were selling cars in the off season, and let's play football. You don't play now, you are legitimately falling way behind. I mean, guys are just so finely tuned now. You always see those reports when there's a rash of injuries, and there's these articles about why do guys get hurt now? Why in baseball, right? There's always, it seems like now pitchers get hurt all the time. Yeah. Why? Because guys are finely tuned Ferraris, and so if any little thing goes wrong, they get hurt. Well, back when Nolan Ryan pitched, I mean, you got out of bed, you drank a Budweiser, and you threw 150 pitches like that. I mean, that, I'm obviously oversimplifying, but the point is,
he was a workout fiend, actually.
Yes, he actually was.
He actually fits today's game.
He does.
Overall, he would have been perfect because he was
a guy like Gaylord Perry.
He worked with that rice barrel, that whole rice barrel thing that he was.
Yeah. But a guy like Gaylord Perry's in the Hall of Fame, right? Not exactly a physical specimen. Didn't have to be. Got out of bed, fine, throw the ball. It's different now. The work that went in then is like a day's worth of practice. So, if Watson's out a couple of years, if that ends up being the case, you do wonder, okay, he's still a young guy, but is he going to come back and look the way he did in Houston? Or is he going to come back and it's just going to be, he's still good, but he's not what he was? Who knows?
Right.
Who knows?
The little window that we saw, he was kind of a little out of whack in the little window that we saw this first week. And that's because, again, you're out of the game, dude. And now it's going to be a second year because it looks like it's going to be a second year. All right. I didn't want to talk really about, I didn't want to bring up Watson, but the whole Josh Gordon thing reminded me of him also going to be away from football. And it's like, yeah, because like Gordon with all his substance issues just pretty much ruined his career.
Yep.
Let me segue to something you led to, which I would imagine that's what you're talking about, the Derwin James deal. That it's 76 million and it's average 19.1 every year or whatever, but nobody has told us what the guarantees are, which is really the key right now. Because if we find out, and then the reason we don't know the guarantees yet, because the agent didn't feel like telling any of the reporters, so now they've got to wait, as you know, because you've been at this like I have for a while. They got to wait a couple of days till the contract's official, and then it's in the NFLPA, and then everybody can have access to it, and then we'll find out the juicy numbers of it. Because if it's only like 15 or 20 million guaranteed, or 30, we now know it's like you said before, it's like a 2-year deal.
So they actually came out just now, just a minute,
Oh, you got it?
$42 million.
Okay,
It's the highest guaranteed ever for. But here's the thing that I am interested in. Okay,
that's a 3-year deal.
So $42 million, and it's the highest guarantee ever. It's the highest annual money ever. But you have to consider this with the Chargers. I wrote about this extensively 2 weeks ago.
This is a dumb contract, and I'm gonna bring something up when you're finished. Go ahead.
So they are going to have to pay Justin Herbert next offseason. That's coming. Either they're going to pay him, or it's going to be an all-out verbal war between his agent and that team for a long time to come. Right. So now, even if they pay him, people always get this twisted. They think like the second he gets paid, his cap number goes through the roof. It's not the case. He will still be cheap for the last 2 years of his rookie deal. Then the extension kicks in. That's when the money gets big. So you wonder with Derwin James, who is currently playing on his 5th-year option, and then he'll have 2 big numbers that are guaranteed in 2023 and 2024. Do the Chargers move on after that? Because then Herbert's money kicks in 2025. So, right. I speculated a couple weeks ago that if I'm Tom Telesco, that's what I would do. That's exactly what I would do, because I love Derwin James' talent. And it's like
so injury prone, dude.
Yes. And that's the thing that I feel like a lot of times doesn't get brought up for a variety of reasons. It's not a knock on the guy, to be honest. He has been eligible in his career to play 65 NFL games. He has missed 29 of them. He's basically missed every other game of his career. So to pay him, look, I get it, if you're the Chargers, he's super talented. That is an enormous risk. An enormous risk for a team that is Slater coming up in a couple of years and Herbert coming up next year.
Can I run something by you? Okay, because obviously we, and I mean us in the media, sometimes the public picks on us, right? But it's not our effing fault, dude. We get jaded sometimes because we get lied to so much. We get misled so much by people in the league and agents and all that stuff, because everybody's got a freaking agenda. And so for me, when I look at this situation, I see it as a PR move. I think Tom Telesco knows this is a bad deal, but I think that Tom Telesco and the people above know that they have a terrible reputation. And while he is a good player and he's a hell of a talent in his own right, but he's not worth that money because he can't stay healthy, unfortunately. But if you're the Chargers and you don't want to pay people and you don't want to keep your better players around, you will send a terrible message out there. And if you ever want Justin Herbert to have success, you will need to recruit other people, not just your draft picks, because everybody's got to build teams also through free agency, not just through the draft. And I almost feel like the Chargers did this like a PR move more than anything else, because they had to kind of send the message that, hey, we will take care of our own. Even a guy like this that has been kind of injury prone in a way, I almost feel like this is more of a PR move than anything else. Am I too jaded?
I don't know that I feel like it's more of a PR move, but I think you're right in the sense that they were in a very tough spot. If they didn't sign him, the refrain would be, well, of course they didn't sign him. They're the Chargers. They're cheap. And so you get this whole thing about Are they going to pay Herbert? And then, guys in the room get pissed because he's a great player and he's out there sacrificing his body and all that stuff. And listen, that's all valid. But injuries matter. They do matter. Like people, I almost, like I said earlier, I think sometimes it's seen as like shots at the player if the media is like, well, he's injury prone. Well, he has been injury prone. I mean, he's missed a ton of games. So that does factor in whether or not you're signing a guy.
And the Chargers, have, as a franchise, have failed their fan base over and over again. And so these are things that, like your favorite team and my favorite team, even though my favorite team has been a clown show, they'll pay everybody. I mean, there's no cheapness with the Dolphins at all. Okay? That's never been the case under Huizinga or Ross. Those dudes pay. Okay, so it hasn't ever been a lack of trying. They've had the wrong people in the leadership position. So obviously that's been why the Dolphins haven't succeeded. Kansas City, the same thing. The Hunt family doesn't have that. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of franchises like that they don't carry that stigma, but the Chargers do. And to me, that's why, because fiscally, it doesn't make any sense to give Derwin James that contract at all. Considering what you just said, he's missed half his career. As a Charger. Dude, are you out of your mind giving him that kind of money? But in their case, they have to have some good PR amongst all the bad PR that they've had for years now, including being a tenant in someone else's stadium, which is by NFL standards, you're basically the dregs of the NFL. You're so poor you can't have your own stadium, which doesn't make sense in a league that prints money.
Yeah, look, you know what? It's going to be interesting because if I were Tom Telesco, I probably would have just said, look, I will call your bluff. You're not going to hold out. You're not going to miss games because guys don't miss game checks because the NFL is too fickle. And I would have said at the end of the year, I can tag you. I mean, now, and then at that point, look, if he has if he had gone out this year and he played 16, 17 games and he's healthy and he's a first team All Pro, then maybe we're having a different conversation. Exactly. I think incredibly highly of his talent. I think when he's on the field, I might make the argument that he's the best safety in football, but he's not healthy a lot. Look, I will say this. It's a big gamble for the Chargers. I also get it in this respect. They are trying to catch Kansas City. They have not been able to catch them for a long time. Nobody's caught them for a long time. The Chiefs are trying to win their 7th straight division title. Okay. The Chargers know that they might as well spend the money right now because when Herbert gets paid, they're not going to be able to spend that money around the roster. And so I give them credit in the sense they're saying, look, we got 2 more years, 3 more years of Herbert being cheap. And we are going to go out and get the J.C. Jacksons of the world and pay Derwin James. And we're going to go out, we're going to get Corey Linsley. And we're going to go out and get Kyle Van Noy. And we're going to spend money on Khalil Mack. And I get it. And I applaud them for it. Now, the question is, did they do it with the right players and in the right spots? I think the Chargers are very – I could make an argument the Chargers, their 10 best players are better than anybody else's in football. You could make that argument. You wouldn't be crazy.
Bro, they shouldn't have missed the playoffs last year. No, that team was more than good enough to be in the playoffs. They should have been in the playoffs.
The question you have with the Chargers is a lot of those top 10 guys have had injury histories. And if they get hurt, whether it's Bosa or James or Khalil Mack last year or Keenan Allen or Mike Williams, if they get hurt, they have no depth. That is the fear I have with the Chargers. If the Bills have a couple guys go down, they got guys for days on the bench. Kansas City, the same thing. Tampa, the same thing. The Rams, the same thing. The Chargers do not have depth. If anybody goes down for a length of time, I mean, they were pretty healthy last year, and they missed the playoffs. If they're not healthy this year, if the guys are missing 4 or 5 games, you just wonder with them, are they just so top heavy that they can't compete if there are the injuries that happen every year for the most part in the NFL?
That's a great point. I didn't realize it, but you're right. Their depth is very questionable. All right, we'll wrap it up with this. Let's have a little fun. Pats and Panthers, 2 straight days of brawls. Is it just frustrations of camp, or is it frustrations that the players are going, man, this situation is kind of screwed up?
Oh, I mean, it's the first time the Panthers have shown fight in years. So it's a good news, bit of news for Carolina. The Pats, every report you hear, and I'm sure everybody in Miami is paying close attention to this, is the fact that their offense is a disaster. I mean, that's all you hear is that Patricia and Judge can't get the offense on track, which who could have seen that coming? That Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, can't figure out an offense. Well, no kidding. It's a defensive coordinator and a special teams coach, both of which who failed miserably as head coaches, who are now trying to figure out an offense that has exactly 0 stars at the skill position.
And none of these guys, including Belichick, have been calling plays against all these defensive coordinators every week for years now. Where that's why you want your offensive coordinators that are experienced and been around, because they have gone through it and they know the tendencies of all these guys. I got to tell you something. I know it's blasphemous to say this, but I think the wheels are coming off of the Patriots and the dynasty and Belichick and all this stuff. And I think he's just acting like he's way too smart in this situation. Here's where I give Saban a ton of credit, because he comes off that Belichick tree, yet, brother, he loses an offensive coordinator. He goes and finds another one. He doesn't try to become the offensive coordinator. He goes and finds another offensive coordinator, and a damn good one. He'll go find himself for his team. This is the part that I don't understand how you hey, listen, I'm glad the Dolphins beat them twice last year, and they had no coaches, no line, no running game. I think they've got a coaching staff now, and I think they'll fix the offense. And with all the talent they had on offense, I think the Dolphins will beat them twice again this year, because they're better, and I don't believe the Patriots are. So I'm glad they're headed in this direction. But as blasphemous as it is to say, I got to tell you, Matt, I think the wheels are coming off Belichick.
Well,
that's just me.
You know what? I mean, they very well might be. The problem is when you drafted poorly, as they did at times, especially toward the end of Brady's time there, you cover it up because you're Brady. Well, yeah, all right. I mean, who cares if you didn't hit on your 3rd round pick? You have Tom Brady. It doesn't matter. You're going to overcome that. When you have Mac Jones, who, by the way, played fine as a rookie, but when you have Mac Jones, you do not have that margin for error. Okay, when you have the Bradys and the Rodgers and the Mahomeses of the world, you can do a lot of things wrong and still win I mean, look at the quintessential.
Hey, look at the Chargers. Look at the Chargers. Look what they've done. They didn't just get Herbert. They have surrounded him with a hell of a cast, dude. And that's what you're supposed to do.
The quintessential example of that was those years of Peyton Manning in Indianapolis. They won 13 games every single year. And the second he got hurt, that team literally could not win a game. Couldn't do anything. But when you have Mac Jones, you've got to be good everywhere else. You've got to be able to support him. If you can't do that, you're screwed. And I look at them, if it was any coach but Belichick who was doing what they're doing right now, they would be skewered to the end of the earth. But because it's look, fair enough. I mean, Belichick's got more rings almost in fingers. But when you're Belichick, you get the pass, and I get it. But it doesn't mean it's a good idea. It doesn't mean that that it's going to work out because Bill's doing it. Well, no, I mean, it's still Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. At the end of the day, they are not Bill Belichick, and that is a concern. And I'm with you. I do not think the Dolphins will have much issue beating them out in the standings this year.
Exactly. When everybody talks about those first 4 games with the Dolphins, that you've got the Ravens, you've got the Patriots, the Bengals, and the Bills, I really only fear the Bills. I'm sorry. Did Lamar Jackson from last year to now, is he going to figure out that 0 cover blitz that Miami whipped on him last year? And then everybody else said, oh, that's how you attack him. No, I don't think so. I don't think the Patriots are better, but I think the Dolphins are. And the Bengals, okay, Miami's got a secondary that maybe could hang with that receiving core, which is absolutely awesome. I think they may have a shot in that game. The Bills, forget it, dude. The Bills they're a Super Bowl caliber team, and I know it. But this fear of God in the first 4 games for the Dolphins, I'm sorry, I don't see it. I think the Dolphins can be very competitive, be 500 or be 3-1, maybe even in the first 4 games. The Bills is the one that I don't think they're going to win.
If they're 500, I think you'd be like, all right. I mean, that's a tough 4 games, right? If they beat New England, they get a division win, and then they win one of those other 3 games. Okay. I will say I do think it's an interesting matchup with Cincinnati because of what you said. It's a weird game because on the surface you're like, well, I think Cincinnati's better, but then you actually look at it and you're like, no, if Tua plays well, they have a shot to win because Cincinnati cannot guard Miami's receivers. Miami can guard. It's all about the quarterback play. If Tua has a good game, they can win. Now, if Tua has a game where he throws for 180 yards, they're going to get smoked.
Oh, no. That game, he has to score points.
Yeah, they're going to have to move the ball in the big way. But listen, you know what? The Dolphins are better. The Patriots, I agree with you, are not. You know what? The Patriots are like the Steelers in this regard. You never can count them out because you know they will not beat themselves. That is the one thing. Like the Steelers this year, I look at the Steelers and I'm like, I don't get it. All right, they're good defensively.
Are you with me on this? Are you with me on this? You got to go Kenny Pickett.
Yes,
I've been saying this from
like,
the
enough
get-go,
with Trubisky.
dude.
God, stop. Mitch Trubisky, why? I'm based in Chicago. You know how many people are excited to see Trubisky taking a snap? Zero. All right, I'm with you. But it's funny. Like, I think if you're the Steelers, if you just play conservative offensively, and you don't turn the ball over, and you play good defense, okay, you're not winning a Super Bowl. But I'll tell you right now, with Tomlin, they will beat Cleveland probably twice. They'll find some way to beat Baltimore because those games are always weird and tough. And
they got a hell of a defense.
They do.
Pittsburgh defense. Remember, they get their pass rushers back this year.
Yes.
They lost their pass rushers towards the end of last year. That really hurt their defense. They lost one of their D linemen also. Yes. They'll be healthier. Pittsburgh's defense is still pretty damn good, dude, and they can get after the quarterback.
But they're the kind of team, much like New England, where you look at them and you say, you know, they're not like their talent isn't off the chart. Now, Pittsburgh, I think, is more talented than New England is, but the idea remains like they're not super talented. Like, Pittsburgh's not one of the top 10 most talented teams in football.
No.
But because of the coaching, they will not beat themselves. If you're going to win, you're going to have to limit your penalties, limit your turnovers, not drop passes on third down. Like they will win. Each of those teams will win 2 or 3 games this year where you're like, how the hell did they beat that team? Well, it's because they took 2 penalties and they didn't drop a pass. Right. And they were +3 in the turnover margin, you know, and they were great on third down and they were 100% in the red zone. Like, that's how those teams win. And then you look at a team. Last year, we talked about, I guess, go full circle, the Chargers, who have all the talent in the world, but you watch them and it's like, well, here's a dumb turnover and here's a ridiculous drop.
Oh, the Texans game cost them the playoffs.
They gave up 40-plus points to the Texans, who had 25 guys on the COVID list. Like, that kind of stuff. Like, New England, there's no way in hell they ever lose that game, like, ever in a million years.
Right.
No. So it is about coaching to a degree, and I think that's why those teams will be competitive, although I don't think they're any kind of contenders for something like the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm not a Pittsburgh fan, but if you're a Steeler fan out there, Kenny Pickett is the guy, dude. And I like him, actually. I don't care about the small hand stuff and all that. That kid can play. He's got moxie. Give him a chance. He's the guy that gives you a chance. Mason Rudolph is toast, and Trubisky is toast. Give the Pickett kid a chance. Yeah, I'm with you there. All right, tell them about Stacking the Box and everything else, my brother.
All right, check out Stacking the Box every Tuesday now that I'm back from vacation. It is every Tuesday all throughout the year. Also Sundays now, starting week 1, the morning of the games. We go right from noon to 1, previewing the whole league right before we get going. You can find it on YouTube. Check it out. Subscribe there. And then actually, I also do the Arrowhead Addict podcast. Fanside had started as a Chiefs website, and so it became much more than that. But I only bring that up because today we interviewed exclusively Brett Veach, the general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs. He came on the pod. It was nice enough to join us for about 15 minutes. So if you'd like to hear his thoughts on a lot of things, not just the Chiefs, go check out the Arrowhead Addict podcast. And you can hear more of me and see more of me, which is probably a negative, but why not?
It's a positive. We love you, Matt. Appreciate you. Follow him on Twitter also at Matt Verderame. And make sure you follow everything that he does and subscribe to Stacking the Box podcast. Matt, have a great week, my brother. We'll catch up next week, my friend. Appreciate you.
Sounds good. Take care.
You got it. And he was a stud today, adjusting with the times and everything. So we appreciate it. That is now the end of the Huddle.